Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to our National Research Conference. I'm so excited to be here. You know, we're looking forward for a fruitful conference discussion today. My name is Diki Duradi. I'm the Deputy Chief of Party and Director of Research of the Democratic Participation and Reform Program, Democracy International. Before we proceed with opening remarks and keynote speech, just a quick overview of today's program. The theme of this conference, as you can see, it's public opinion research as key pillar of democracy in Bangladesh. The thinking behind the theme, behind the conference, is very simple. I think, you know, if we see this room today as a democratic country, I think we all can agree it's very easy for the leader, whoever is the elected leader of the room, to come and meet every single citizen and make sure all their concerns, all our concern in the room is being addressed by the democratic administration. However, you know, in a big country like Bangladesh, it's not so easy. We have 165, 170 million people. So it's very difficult to say, yes, I've made this decision democratically by consulting all citizens of Bangladesh, isn't it? So that's the thinking behind this conference. And today, we are going to hear from experts, from, you know, a very experienced pollsters, people who do public opinion surveys around the world, and they will share their experience on how public opinion survey can solve these questions, this problem. We have a full agenda, and let's begin. I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. David Datman, to present his opening remarks, welcoming remarks. David, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dickie. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking you all for coming out on what may be a more difficult day than others to get to a conference. And it's delightful to see so many people here to talk about research. I want to spend a little bit of time talking more about DPR as a whole, to talk about what we're doing in Bangladesh and what we hope to do in the future. First of all, DPR is here as part of a political parties program. We're a 5-year project jointly funded by USAID and the United Kingdom through DFID. Our overall objective is to better connect parties with their citizens and better connect parties with their partisans. So there are two lenses through which we operate our program. The first is an external lens, in which research plays a significant role. The external lens is we are working with parties to connect their activities, their policies, their manifestos with citizens. As Dickie mentioned, one of the easiest ways, most effective technologies for that, is through the use of public opinion research. Our goal is to encourage parties, but also governments and NGOs, to utilize research to get a sense of the needs, hopes, and dreams of their citizens. The other lens through which Democracy International works is internally. We partner with political parties to help them to do a better job of listening to their activists, listening to their partisans. We do this through a series of activities. The first objective we have has to do with women and young people. We have opened offices all around the country. We're in each of the administrative divisions where we have permanent staff that continually works with women and young people party members to make sure that they are more fully included into the everyday work of a political party. This means that we are helping the parties to identify women to serve on committees, to run for public office, and to more generally be involved. To date, we have done programming that has included more than 4,000 women in these projects, and we are seeing all of the parties respond very positively, and we're seeing progress for women and young people, so we're very, very excited about that. The second objective we have is the objective under which this program falls, which is our research objective. We are hoping to work with parties to help them take research seriously, to collect information in ways that are objective and honest and better connect them with citizens. We'll be talking about a lot of that today. Our third objective relates to internal democracy for the parties. We are spending a great deal of time working with all of the parties around the country, assisting them with conferencing, assisting them with their meetings, to help encourage new people to get involved and to encourage better processes for the parties. To date, we have worked with over 25,000 local elected grassroots officials from all levels and from all over the country to involve them in their party activities. We are very, very delighted today to be presenting this honorable panel. We have experts from around the world, and I'd like to thank them for their attendance today, and Dickie will be introducing them each individually. But in particular, it is my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker. His Excellency, Mr. Robert Gibson, CMG, the British High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Mr. Gibson has been serving as the British High Commissioner since September of 2011. Prior to that, he has served in a number of diplomatic postings in the United Kingdom and overseas, mainly in the Middle East and Asia. But he has also undertaken a number of jobs in multilateral missions. He previously served as Deputy High Commissioner in Dhaka from 2002 to 2005. He was appointed CMG by Your Majesty in the 2011 New Year's Honors List. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Excellency.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Cowan, Dr. Salahuddin, Mr. Qadari, Mr. Detman, Ms. Lake, and the many distinguished speakers, participants, and ladies and gentlemen in the audience. Good morning. What a great pleasure it is to be here today. A big welcome to our overseas guests. I'm sorry that we are offering you a quiet day outside, but I'm afraid that has become part and parcel of life in Dhaka these days. And I'm very grateful for Democracy International for inviting me to be here, and I'm very pleased that UK Aid was able to make a contribution to holding this event. I'm not a politician nor a researcher, but I am a very keen observer of political opinion in politics, and also, of course, a keen supporter of democracy. The British government is committed to supporting responsible and responsive and representative democratic institutions around the world. In Bangladesh, we work with a range of partners, including Democracy International, to promote a political system that is more capable, accountable and responsible, especially to the needs of the poor and marginalized. And this includes encouragement for political parties that are responsive to citizens and their interests, elections that are credible, transparent and inclusive, a parliament which is open and effective, and citizens that are active and engaged on the issues of concern to them, and that includes corruption. So why does this matter? As a citizen, I know that I want to be listened to. When exercising my right to vote, I want to be able to exercise a choice that is relevant to me. And as a public official also, I can recognize the value of understanding what people want and what they don't want. An informed government is better able to serve its constituents. Policies that respond to identified needs are more likely to be implemented successfully. But as human beings, we don't always say what we want unless asked. We assume that what we want is obvious, or that someone else will say it for us. Or we want different things that are not necessarily compatible. In Bangladesh, the scale is considerable. How can politicians and officials hear and understand the opinions and desires of more than 160 million people? Public opinion research is a tool that can help connect citizens and elected officials. It can help ask the right questions to the right people and to make sense of the response. It is a tool that can be used by government officials, by political parties, by NGOs, by the media and all other stakeholders to strengthen their efforts to engage with and maintain an active dialogue with citizens. But it is a tool that must be used correctly. Research has to be based upon scientific principles and used for the public good. In an age where a supermarket chain can easily predict what you're going to buy based on your previous purchases, in an age where Facebook and Google can tailor advertisements to you simply based on who your friends are and what topics you discussed, in an age where through GPS, smartphones, researchers have identified that they can tell exactly who you are simply after you have visited 4 locations. This is an age where Poland has a great opportunity to move into the 21st century. Today, therefore, is a rare opportunity for the supply side, scientists and researchers, to sit at the demand side, politicians and government stakeholders, to discuss and share best practice. Democracy International has brought together experts from across the globe to share best practice in the field of public opinion research. I want therefore to conclude by reiterating the UK's long-standing commitment to democratic strengthening and to the people of Bangladesh. As I have said before on many occasions, strengthening democratic institutions and practices is, I believe, the key to a stable and prosperous future. Democratic institutions are where political debate should take place, not on the streets in a violent manner. Good democratic practices ensure that people have their say. Bangladesh is facing a key election within the next 10 months. It is not for me to say how that election should be delivered, but it is for me to express the hope that there will be sufficient confidence in that process to encourage participation and to encourage the electorate to vote. I regret that I will not stay today to listen to what I'm sure will be very stimulating arguments and other speakers, but what I would encourage you today is to work hard and to argue hard. And I certainly look forward to seeing the benefits of today's discussions reflected in your work and practice in future and in the delivery of democracy in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Before we begin the sessions, I would like to make a quick introductions of the speakers who are present here today in the order of their session. The first session we're going to, after the keynote, we will hear a presentation from Dr. Salahuddin Aminuzzaman. My apologies. Yeah, you told me it's difficult to pronounce. Dr. Salahuddin. He will talk about, research in general in Bangladesh. What are the challenges, the opportunities, and then after that we will have Ms. Celinda Lake from the USA, who's gonna talk about the nuts and bolts of public opinion research and how political parties and other government stakeholders use research in the US. And then we're gonna hear from my friend, my more successful friend, Mr. Muhammad Kodari from Indonesia. He will tell us the story of how Indonesia transformed how they do politics and how more and more political parties are using public opinion research. And the last session we will hear from Mr. Glenn Cowan, founder and chief executive of Democracy International, and he will discuss the things we need to know about public opinion research, how to differentiate good ones and not so good ones. Okay, I would like to kindly invite all the speakers and participants to take your seats in the table we've provided, and then we will continue with Dr. Salahuddin's session. Again, a big round of applause for Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna start our first session. Just a quick, rule of the game. We have 4 speakers with tons of experience, and we only have 1 day. So in the interest of time, I would suggest, we let the presenter make a 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes presentations, and then we do a Q&A session. Is that okay? Yes? All right. But if you have a burning questions while the session is in progress, please write it down on your note and then fold it and put it on your table. One of my colleagues will take it and bring it here. Okay. So our first speaker, he has an academic career of more than 35 years. He has visited numerous prominent, famous universities around the world, in the US, in Europe, and in Africa as well. His writings and papers on governance issues have been published in numerous distinguished journals, both here in Bangladesh, in South and Southeast Asia, and internationally as well. He has conducted, extensive development work in the region with numerous international organizations, the World Bank, UNDP, ADP, DANIDA, you name it, Dr. Salahuddin has done it. But only today, he has the pleasure of working with one of the best, which is Democracy International. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Salahuddin.
Very good morning. Honorable guests, distinguished speakers, and good friend Dicky. He has more than disproportionately introduced me. I'm glad that he has said something about me, but that most probably needs to be objectively checked further. Now, let me be honest to say that as an academic, usually we feel very comfortable presenting a PowerPoint. The topic that I'm dealing with, I thought that it would be better if I read out the paper in a very brief. And I was told by the organizers that this paper should not be more than 6 pages. I struggled a lot and I managed to get a 6-page paper. But from there, I make it even a shorter oral presentation. For 2 reasons in particular. I believe that when I put things in a PowerPoint, I may not be able to really cover some of the critical things that slip out. And second, this is more of an academic descriptive paper than that of an empirical findings. So I would like to read it out, and this is perhaps the first time in my long history of academicians I've been reading a paper. So please forgive me and hold your patience. The title of the paper, Implication of Social Research in Modernization of Political Parties in Bangladesh. Now, this brief paper attempts to argue that social research does not only help the political parties become more responsive to the larger constituencies, but also contributes towards political mobilization, which ultimately helps develop a positive image of the political parties in Bangladesh. So this paper is primarily focused in the context of Bangladesh experience. It is needless to say that political parties are indispensable in any democracy. As Elmer Schatzleiter, a great renowned political scientist, noted, and I quote him, "The political parties create a democracy, and modern democracy is unthinkable without political parties." Now, in any democracy, political parties act as the collective and legitimate platforms to raise public concerns, voices, and demands to a greater political plateau. Political parties play, quote unquote, a bridging role between the state and the citizen. They also ensure the practice and process of accountability and make the government and public institutions responsive to the electorate. Political parties, therefore, find it necessary to equip and orient themselves to understand people's perception, expectation, aspirations, even frustrations, to develop and sustain democratic culture and practices. Thus, bulk of literature and political parties claim that undemocratic internal processes generally led to oligarchic tendencies in the policies promoted by the political parties. Furthermore, an embedded internal culture of bureaucratic oligarchic syndrome may lead to the failure of political parties to respond to the public's interest and demands. Now, in Bangladesh, the political parties are highly competitive, and there is a significant rate of political participation. People of Bangladesh are concerned to be very politically conscious, and you could see some of the findings that DI has done lately, which shows that implication of the consciousness. During the 2008 election, as many as 38 political parties participated in the national election, and 87.1% of voters turned out for such vote. Four major political parties, Bangladesh Awami League, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Jatiya Party, and Jamaat, generally dominate the political arena, and together they captured about almost 92% of the total vote being casted. Nonetheless, most observers readily accept the fact that democracy in Bangladesh is weak. The political system is confrontational and fragile to a great extent. Bangladesh has been described, quote unquote, as competitive authoritarianism, and the fact that these democratic facades, under this democratic facade, there is an authoritarian regime in rule. Over the last 3.5 decades, Bangladesh as, quote unquote, undemocratic and accused to being practicing, quote unquote, patron-client culture. Political parties have also been criticized for not nurturing, quote unquote, democratic norms internally and tending to maintain a high level of power distance from the society at large. It is alleged that honorable MPs, due to lack of appropriate preparation, hardly get seriously engaged in the policy debates and analysis. Rather, they remain busy eulogizing their leaders. This has been quoted from, in strengthening democratic practices and good governance has been diminishing due to its poor image, lack of credibility, and low public trust. These are also political parties, though having low trust and image, still matter in the Bangladesh political process and its mobilization. Elected office bearers at various levels, in most cases, win the election not necessarily as a credible candidate, but because of the party symbol they represent. Paradoxically, it is therefore appears that political parties, in spite of their negative image and credibility, still play a significant role in the political mobilization and the process of entry to elected offices. Importance of research of the political parties in Bangladesh. Now, the prime goal of the political party is to mobilize the society in line with the ideology and ultimately they get elected to run the country. In order to achieve such goals, political parties need to take electoral preparation, not only through political propaganda, but also intellectual and professional larger constituencies. In order to influence policy decision, political parties do not necessarily need to create a large enough support base, but also meticulously need to understand the political socio-economic dynamics of their respective constituencies. Political parties in Bangladesh so far have generally emphasized more on organizing rallies, campaigns broadly related to political mobilization than political education elections. Such preparations needs objective assessment and critique of policies, appropriate assessment of the political economy, reorganizing the support base through positive activism, making the governance and policy alternatives clear. All such actions require intellectual exercises based on research and analysis of strategically significant for the political parties in Bangladesh. These are as follows. First, I believe, the broad area is understanding policy dynamics and policy analysis. Political parties have to develop the competence to understand and analyze the characteristics of quote-unquote socio-political matrix, which refers to the conditions and processes within which party work, and hence to understand such priorities and conditions. MPs therefore need to be more research-based information to get them deeply involved in the policy debates. Next, I would suggest review and assessment of the public opinion as a broader area of research. It is essential for the political parties to carry out research to assess public opinion for developing an effective, not only an effective election campaign, but also as a tool of policy advocacy strategy. Next, public opinion mobilization. Research is indeed critical when it comes to factors such as public mobilization. This may be carried out only if ample knowledge is obtained through research to figure out what people want, what they really need, and what keeps them satisfied. Another broad area of research interest should be learning from the past mistakes. Assessment of the past trends help political parties to learn from mistakes. Political parties may find it useful to look into the past decisions of the opposition groups in order to help analyze certain decisions of the past. Developing communication strategies. Political parties, by the very nature, would like to influence political decision of the state. In order to do so, it is imperative to create a large enough support base. Creating such a support base would require organizing activities that attract the people and the public attention both. These objectives could be well addressed by cogently articulating and perceptively arguing with empirical research. Understanding the transition to mature democracy. As we all are aware, Bangladesh is in a transition state of democracy. So the age of democracy is not that very old yet, I must say. The process of democracy started in Bangladesh in the early 90s. So we have to really understand the new maturing process of democracy. Since Bangladesh has experienced a reign of dictatorial rule in the past, political parties therefore need more insight to understand and analyze the nature, process, and dynamics of the transition towards maturing democracy. Political parties thus need to appreciate the art and science of political reconciliation as the process of democratic extensions through dialogue and negotiation and accommodation. In addition to conventional wisdom, the understanding of such adaptation techniques demands in-depth research and analysis of local and global experiences. Addressing threshold of global change is another area. Environmental, political, ethnic issues, and regional and global challenges that confront humanity, and constantly these are deepening. Bangladesh is not an exception. Given the context, political parties need to understand the new paradigm of human development. The political parties, furthermore, need to search for new approaches to cope with the challenging transition model of modernity. Another area that I would like to emphasize is what I brand is as assessing the role of new social actors. In Bangladesh, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations are playing an important role in social mobilization process and economic empowerment of the disadvantaged sections of the community, of the population. Political parties have to understand the dynamics of the emergence of such bodies and assess their space in the larger body politic. Development of database. Any political party, in order to become successful, would require a strong factual base on the constituencies. Without creating data and information on disparity, demographic trends, income structure, healthcare, and other social delivery indicators, political parties would find it rather difficult to allocate and even advocate for resources. Research initiatives of the political of Bangladesh, what we have done so far. Well, the political parties have to recognize that social research reflects the social reality. Almost all the political parties in Bangladesh have a research and analysis wing with the designated or elected office bearer. And evidence, however, suggests that as of now, research wings of major political parties have not produced any document or research paper of substantive policy issues. Now, I have drawn this conclusion from a quick review with the discussion with some of the political leaders. At the same time, I looked into their website. If you look into the website of the major political parties, well, my detailed paper has a reference there. You won't find much. Just for example, I'm telling you, if you look into the website of ruling party Bangladesh Awami League, you'll find that there's one research-based paper which compares the achievement of Awami League government during the past period, and it compared with the BNP's last 5 years of their power. So apart from this single paper, there is nothing else that could be called a research-based documentation. Similarly, for Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, virtually is nothing. And I did also look into the website of Bangladesh Jatiya Party, except one document which propagates the idea of having the federal government in Bangladesh. And that is the only policy paper they have. And apart from that, there's nothing except few literary work of the chairperson of the particular party I'm referring to. And surprisingly, I did, of course, notice that there are some policy documents in their respective, website of Jamaat Islami. They have few policy statements and policy documents being attached there. Now, I haven't read them in detail as such, but it shows that most of the political parties, major political parties who have captured about 90% of the vote, hasn't done much of research so that they can really express themselves. Now, so what happens, evidence suggests that, as of now, there's not been much research. As a result, neither the political party members nor the citizens get any opportunity to assess the party's position and approaches on major policy issues. All the major parties have their website, and most of the items posted on the sites, with the exception of few, are materials mainly for party propaganda and only targeted to party workers and sympathizers. As a result, common citizens hardly get any opportunity to assess the party's position and approach on major policy issues. And in the main paper, I have attached a list what are the areas they should really be engaged into different types of research. So what do I conclude? In fact, research should not be seen as the task of academics alone, but it is also equally important for all strategic and interactive organizations, including political parties. Political parties, being an active and interactive entity, should therefore develop professional competence to undertake social research on strategic issues of policy and governance. The political parties of Bangladesh need to appreciate the necessity of developing in-house capacity to undertake research. Political parties may take the assistance from professionals, but should not treat research as a one-off service before the election. Rather, should consider it as a regular and built-in part in political analysis of policy and strategic issues. While presenting the election manifesto and announcing the policy and position papers, they should skillfully use the findings of the research to make the policy packages professionally sound and credible to the targeted clients. The parties may take initiatives to organize research workshops to train the professional staff on some of the basic social research methods like content and document analysis, survey research, Delphi techniques, force field analysis, media scanning, focus group discussion, scenario building exercise, and so on and so forth. In such cases, political parties may consider jointly undertaking research projects with think tanks and even civil society organizations. Such initiatives will bring, build, and strengthen the image as well as the credibility of the political parties. Research-based political advocacy will also make the parties to contribute to the political mobilization, modernization process of the country in the era of global challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Salahuddin, for your presentation. If I may do a quick overview, I think Dr. Salahuddin has discussed, how social research and research in general can help parties to be responsive to citizens, at the same time winning elections. You discussed, that Bangladesh as a country, as a society, is very political. People are highly active and participating in the political system. However, you also highlighted some problems of, confrontational political system and activities. You highlighted the need to improve internal democracy and, improve distance, make parties closer to political parties, to people. And then you conclude, research is important and should not be viewed by the parties as an academic task, because this is everyone's task, including parties and the government stakeholders. So there is a need to improve in-house capacity within political parties, and parties should do research not only during election. We started the session about 15 minutes earlier than scheduled, which is very rare happenings in my experience. So we have now about 35 minutes for questions and answers, and I would like to open the session for the first questions. Who would do the honor to ask the first question? Dr. Salahuddin. Yes.
I'd like to make a comment. It's not a question, it's a comment.
Okay.
Did valuable research and valuable paper, and I hope there are political party representatives here who can take account of what of this paper. We are at Dhaka, there are researchers and political activists, but as you know, unless there are political party representatives here, I don't think even the activists can do much. And the researchers will go on doing research, and the political parties will go on working with their own. Thank you very much. This is only a comment.
Okay. Interesting. Let's gather 3 comments, questions, and then I will let Dr. Salahuddin respond to the comments and questions. The second one, gentleman on the second table, please.
Dr. Salahuddin for a very nice and informative paper. Just I have quite a few comments on that, few questions as well. The title of the paper indicates about the modernization of the parties. What is the degree, or what is the status of this modernization? What is the characters when you see a modern political party? Can you throw a little bit of light on that? And the second important point I want to make, looking into the political parties in our countries, which also you have explained, do you think the quality of the politicians play a role in modernization? So, do you alternately I can say whether we have enough quality people inside those parties to support modernization. And the third point I want to make is that you have given very important and very nice elaboration of the some issues that the party should concentrate in terms of research. And okay, what I believe that if a party believes that the people are the base of power, obviously it should concentrate to those issues. But in our country, we hear from the politicians, from the media, that the alternate power bases. People can come to power through some alternate means as well. In that case, will a party be interested to focus on those issues? I think my last point is that there is nothing much about the media, which is very modern nowadays. Can they shape behavior of the politicians? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. May I have your name?
In fact, I do not belong to any political parties. Thank you.
Mr. Bazar, thank you. Okay, I see. Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. I have a very brief question that what would be the motivation of the political parties to be modernized? Thank you, sir.
May I have your name as well, sir?
This is Salahuddin Ahmed.
Comment. I think I can't agree more with you. I'm sure there are some of colleagues around here who are representing the political parties, and because of special reason, most probably both political party in power and opposition likely not being here. But I'm sure some of them will be around, and I believe that this kind of interactive session would have been, at least for myself, I would believe that would have been more encouraging for myself to really understand more about what the position is. But I believe that sometime down the line, most probably some of them will be here and we can hear from them. But I certainly believe the political party should have been here, and they were supposed to be here, but unfortunately
We have representative, I think I can see in the room from Salahuddin.
So I would, at one point, most likely to comment.
Yes.
And then Mr. Khairul Bashar has given a range of questions, and I can't thank you more. Well, modernization process, basically from a political perspective, I would say that when you see the deep engagement of the people. Now, in our context, of course, the engagement is very high. That means 80% people are voting. This does not necessarily reflect the political mobilization. When you say political mobilization, you mean a sort of meaningful, active engagement whereby you can have a dialogue and discussion, and you can maintain the question of accountability of the political system to you. In other words, from a constitutional point of view, if the people believe that they're exercising Article 7, which gives them all power, then only you can say it's a modernization process. Now, political parties definitely, historically, even in our country, in spite of all this rhetoric that we have about them, that they're confrontational, but we do have, if you look at the historical context, the political parties have definitely contributed in the process, or else we have been here. The whole process of political mobilization that started in the 60s and onward, that has brought us here at this level. Although we are not quite happy what we have achieved, but we have come to a point. So political parties did play. But fact is that how can political parties in Bangladesh be more modern and continue to process modernization? And I believe the first process is that to make the political parties more responsive to the demand side. Now, it looks like our political party is not, as I mentioned before also, is not practicing democracy within. So naturally, as a citizen, you can question that, do you have moral right to ask if you're democratic? Because you're not really practicing it. So this kind of forum that we here we are trying to create the demand side. And I, being an academic, I'm encouraging my students, my colleagues, and the larger constituencies like this to really create the demand side. And I was talking to DI also, and one of the mandate of DI, as I understand, is to create the demand side. And subsequently, this could be one of the approaches whereby our political parties could be more modern and responsive. And then you have questioned that whether there are enough people in the political parties who really want modernization, or are they modern? Now, fact is that modernization is a continuous process. It depends on the scale where you belong. Now, it is the role of the civil society, it's the role of media, it's the role of academics and citizens at large to really create pressure. And we are not happy with what's happening, but it does not mean that we have completely fed up with the system. So it is our role also to continue to pursue the modernization. And you have rightly mentioned that, does the media play a role? And I fully believe that media has played in the past, and is being played. And if you look into, quite seriously, if you look into the content of media for the last 10, 15 years, I must say media has played more significant role than many others in creating the demand side and nurturing the demand side. So media has played definitely a positive role, but most probably some of the medias are being blamed or being criticized for not being objective in their assessment process. So this is again a challenge that we need to take up, and we also can raise our voice that media are not. And there has been some study being made by some scholars which shows that media in Bangladesh is being generally controlled by corporate houses. So that has again raised another dimension. But I am not in the position to make a sort of general conclusion about that. But I strongly believe that media has played a role in political mobilization process, and most probably will play the same role in the coming years. Now, last one is people can, you talk about alternative approach?
Yes, it's in a way that you see, we see in the media that people are telling that, okay, people can come to power without being by manipulating the election or by some external power-based things like that. If that is the culture of coming to the power, then why do we need why that party will need a modernization or equality or be accountable to the people? That's the point.
Well, basically in democracy, there's nothing but alternative in reality. So if you're talking about, or anyone think about that, that thing, the whole concept is undemocratic. There is, in an ideal democracy, in a modern state now where we're living, there's nothing called, there's a backdoor of coming to power. You may have a conspiracy and all this thing, but at the end of the day, it doesn't work. So I don't believe that any other alternative but people's power. So we have to mobilize people anyway. And our history has shown that we have been able to, very successfully able to mobilize people and got into power. But those who are driving or are propagating the idea of alternative approach of coming to power, I think that is not democratic. And any democratic society is not being recognized. And even if some are able to get into the power, really history doesn't really resolve. That's our stand. Now the last question that I got from one of our colleagues, Mr. Saiful, what would be the motivation to get, for the political to get modernized? To get him to be modernized, plain and simple, the protest way of putting it, if you want to survive and if you want to get into power, you got to be modernized. Because you cannot befool people for a longer period. And I can tell you that if you look into the political party's manifesto, if you have a critical look into the political manifesto that we have in the last election, you'll find that there is, at least for 3 political parties, which I did a little bit work, and I found a significant similarity and overlap even of words. So in other words, at least on paper, and these are very important ideas they're pushing forward. And they're talking about all those components, what we call political modernization, is there. And the question is whether they believe it or not. And this is the typical question, and we could really raise the question about it, whether they understand or they internalize it. But I believe that they really want to be modernized because they want to go to the power. And most likely with the increasing rate of literacy and awareness, they are much more concerned. And with this globalization process, with this open air, television and other things, people watching what's happening around. So naturally there is a growing demand side. And our political parties, like it or not, they're according those into their manifesto. And how that gets manifested in their activities and operation, that's the million-dollar questions. And here we as citizens would raise our voice at our own capacity as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Second round of questions. I get a note from Mr. Zakaria. Mr. Zakaria, can we have the mic? And then after that, Madam, yes.
Presentation. I'm Zakaria from IGS Break University. My question touches upon just 2 issues. You say that the modernization process of our political parties and some other issues to strengthen our own democracy. And I see that most of these lessons comes from democracy in national NDI and other institutions. But my question is that the Western world is having their own democratic problem nowadays, because the Occupy Wall Street movement, one versus the rest, and also the corporatization of democracy. So I was just thinking whether we can distinguish what lesson we can learn from the West and what lesson we can avoid from the West. And the other big issue for now, that the manufacturing consent, as you see the book written by Noam Chomsky, that media sometimes used as a tool for manufacturing flawed consent or distorted consent, or the consent that is not the true reflect of the society. Rather, it serves the vested interest, it serves the media houses, corporates. So, in that case too, if we want to go ahead from the all the good side of the West, and how we can avoid the bad side, just drawing the fine line.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Professor Ilyas Bhai.
Thank you. I'm Professor Masur Rashid Chaudhry. I would like to ask that I would like just focus first that political parties are very busy with their activities, their programs, their challenges and everything. You in your paper have given the importance of research for political parties. How would you initiate these within the parties? Thank you.
Thank you. I like short, concise questions. Yes. All right. Please.
Just thank you very much for your nice presentation. I have only one question, and this is for the context of Bangladesh, because you know the issue of modernization of political parties, very important issue, is to start democracy by the head of the political party in the context of Bangladesh. My question, and I want to ask Professor Salahuddin Aminuzzaman, how to start this process in Bangladesh, because you know in our country democracy and everything is mainly dependent on the wish of the head of the political party. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let's give Professor Salahuddin to respond to the questions and comments. Please, Professor.
Well, Zakaria has asked two questions. One is that what we can learn and what should we learn from the West. Now, fact remains that Western democracy is mature, and model that impressed me very much of late, say for example, you have been following the Wall Street movement, which gives a space to ventilate your ideas, your objections in a very non-violent or sometimes a bit tense way, but there is space to really let your mind blow. And I think we should learn from this that, well, in democracy I can not always agree with you, but you have all the right to disagree with me. In other words, democratic tolerance. This is what one of the beauty in Western democracy we have allowed. At the same time, consensus building. If you look into the recent fiscal cliff debate that we have watched in the late recent years about healthcare and other facilities and fiscal balance, you did notice that there was almost a stalemate. But end of the day, most of the observers knew that some settlement would be done. In other words, you really have a sharp position, but for the sake of the interest of your own economic and political benefits, you will come to a negotiation whereby you take a decision for the sake of maintenance and process of democracy. And we have that example. I believe these are the two things we should be learning from them. That accommodate opposition view, if not accept it, that is try to listen, which you don't. Second, sit for negotiation on even of a position where you are almost in a reverse state. But end of the day, you can make some dialogue, discussion, get things go. These are two things I would say positive side. Now, next question, as I said, that media in Bangladesh, as you have mentioned, they represent vested interest group, and I don't object that. If you look into a whole assessment of the major media in Bangladesh, they usually represent a larger corporate house, and sometimes some of the news that comes is basically motivated to promote their own interest. And I have a strong feeling that this is not a good sign for a fair, mature, democratic process to continue to run the process. Now again, people are the ultimate, those who make the ultimate judgment. And you'll find that those people in media which are highly trying to promote their own business interest groups are not really that popular, or not really that accepted by the leadership as such. I'm not making any qualitative judgment, but if you do a survey and you try to find out that who is doing what and what is the circulation and all, you most likely find that some of the media are coming from very strong corporate or not necessarily that one. So it is most probably the way the leadership take. And I tell you frankly, globally speaking, the media is always, sometimes they belong to different groups. It's not a unique phenomenon of Bangladesh. So I'm not that sort of discouraged with the fact. But fact remains, as our awareness, literacy, and consciousness move forward, the citizens in the position to take the judgment. And then Professor Masuda Chaudhary said, how could the political parties really... The question, I couldn't quite get it.
Then how do we initiate?
Okay, how do we initiate the political parties to really grab those
Because I
things?
know Democracy International has done a wonderful work, but still within the parties, how do we initiate?
Okay, fine. First question, that they have to recognize the fact that they have to survive. And people are increasingly getting more aware, concerned, and also the people are getting more ideas, values, views from different sources. And the easiest and cheapest way is to get into the sky. You have an open sky, we really know exactly what's happening globally. So most likely this could be a pressure site to be created. And I believe that this has already started. And if you look into an assessment of different civil society bodies and NGOs that are working in the rural areas, and I being a researcher, I did notice there has been a qualitative change in rural areas where people are really much more conscious. And I did, for the sake of your audience, I must say one empirical data that I have. We did a survey about the political awareness package. We did find that our sample group was rural and urban women. And we did find a scale of 7, we had a battery of questions, at a scale of 10. We did find that rural women, those are beneficiaries of different civil society bodies, NGOs, or credit organizations, their awareness scale is almost, in the scale of 10, they're almost close to 6.2, their scale of awareness. Vis-a-vis, when we did the same battery survey for urban housewife and educated housewife, and the scale is 3.8, amazingly half from each. So this shows that if you really work, because urban middle-class housewives, they are quite educated, but they're not bothered about what's happening because she's content what she has. She's a housewife, not work woman. Now, in the rural areas, they are really actively engaged with different kind of activities, and that has been supplemented by the increasing work being done by different NGOs and civil society bodies to really raise their awareness. So this may be quite an optimistic, may not necessarily the case all over Bangladesh, but this shows some symptom that if you work with the people and make them aware, if you create the demand side, it's ever likely that demand side will come on. So if the demand side keeps on growing, I believe that our politicians will not be able to ignore it anymore. And that is the pressure has to come. I have only thing that believe that if the party starts culturing democracy, but when they sit in the real podium of decision, they leave it with the wisdom of the party chief. And this has been the case for all three major political parties here in our mind. So it is the question of party leadership to really respond to that. But I again believe that if the wave of demand starts coming in and people start questioning this kind of thing, that why don't you ask that? And media can also put some question there. Some very serious, important question to the parties that you have been talking about democracy, but not really ensuring it at your party level, at the highest level. And I think that is the character we have all the major political parties, except one conservative party that we have.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Salahuddin, for your explanations. We have about 7 minutes exactly, and I have about, 10 questions here. But fortunately, some of these questions are the same. So I apologize for not opening the floor. I'm going to read questions from the audience. Express concern about political confrontations, how the opposition and the ruling parties are conducting their activities. And if I may sum up her questions, is there anything research can do to help solve that confrontation? And the second one came from Mr. Ziaul, and he wants you to explain more. He believes there's an imbalance between demand side and supply side relating to research and modern politics in Bangladesh. If you can provide further comments on that.
First question is about how the research will contribute to ease the confrontation. Now, I wish I could be a psychologist. But frankly speaking, confrontation is not part of our culture. You'll hardly find that in our history we have major confrontation. We fought in liberation war. I won't call it confrontation. It is a question of our survival and a question of national identity. So by nature, Bangladeshi or Bangali, what you call us, we are not confrontational. Now we have been made to be confrontational by a vested interest group. Now if you go down the line here at the grassroots level, you see the major political parties, they're in talking town. Only in the national level leadership we find that confrontation. Now, I really don't know how this confrontation is being rated by the large constituencies. Do they like it or do they hate it? If you say that 99% are hating it and we really publish it, point blank, that people really hate you because you're confrontational. Now, we haven't done that much of study. I think a young researcher has given us some idea that let's do some research and see how people take this confrontational politics. Would they appreciate it? My hypothesis is not, but I think this could be done and be quite strong propagated. And second thing, I believe that we should do a research on the young people, the heart of Bangladesh, and try to just bring out, because all the political parties are now heavily invested or putting the time to understand the psyche of young generation. I think a loud message should be going there that enough is enough. We don't want confrontation. We want dialogue and conciliation.
Right. Maybe a quick comment on the demand side of survey. Supply them with the data for them to act.